It's funny, isn't it? How we chase the past, even when it's better left buried. That's what brought me to Mars. A second chance. Redemption. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The shuttle landed in a cloud of red dust, the Valles Marineris excavation site looming in the distance like an open wound on the planet's surface. The outpost was already active, its domed modules glinting faintly under the thin Martian sunlight. It was a marvel of engineering, a beacon of hope in a desolate wasteland. As I stepped onto the surface, my boots crunching against the dry, rust-colored soil, I felt the weight of the mission settle on my shoulders. This was my chance to prove myself, to show them all that Ryan Cole wasn't a failure. But as I looked out at the barren landscape, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were trespassing somewhere we didn't belong. Lieutenant Mark Hargrove greeted me with a curt nod as I entered the habitat. "Doctor Cole," he said, his voice as sharp and precise as his uniform. "Welcome to Mars." "Thanks," I replied, trying to match his professionalism. "How's the team settling in?" Hargrove's expression didn't waver. "They're eager to begin, but I hope you understand, Doctor. My priority is their safety, not your research." I nodded, though his words stung. "Understood, Lieutenant. I'll make sure we tread carefully." Hargrove didn't respond. He simply turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the sterile, artificial air of the habitat. We'd been excavating for 3 days, battling Mars' unrelenting red soil when Patel's scanner gave the first real sign that something extraordinary lay beneath us. "I'm picking up some weird patterns," Patel said, his voice tinged with both confusion and excitement. He hunched over his handheld display, his fingers darting across the controls as the image sharpened into view. "Geometric alignments. This isn't natural." I leaned over his shoulder, staring at the holographic overlay projected above the scanner. It showed what appeared to be a vast underground structure, its lines impossibly precise, its shape entirely foreign. My pulse quickened. "You're sure about this?" I asked, my voice betraying the flicker of hope rising in my chest. Patel didn't look up. "The patterns repeat. Symmetry this perfect doesn't happen in nature, not on this scale." Behind us, Hargrove crossed his arms, his expression skeptical as always. "Or it's a glitch in the scanner. The last time we found symmetry, it turned out to be a basalt formation." "This isn't basalt," Patel shot back, his tone unusually sharp. "It's too deep, and it's massive. You don't get patterns like this by accident." I couldn't tear my eyes from the display. I'd seen enough of Mars to know when we'd stumbled onto something extraordinary. And this was more than extraordinary. It was impossible. "Let's open it up," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "Get the drills online." The drilling took hours. Mars's soil was unyielding, compacted by millennia of dust storms and geological shifts, but the automated machinery worked tirelessly, cutting a precise tunnel into the depths. The deeper we went, the stranger the readings became. Patel's scanner showed fluctuations in the electromagnetic field, faint vibrations emanating from below. "It's not just a structure," Patel muttered, his eyes glued to the scanner. "There's something active down there. A signal, maybe." "Active?" Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "You mean it's powered?" "Maybe," Patel replied, though the uncertainty in his voice was clear. "Or it could just be residual energy. Whatever it is, it's faint, barely detectable." Hargrove didn't look convinced. "Or it's nothing. We won't know until we see it." And then, with a low metallic screech, the drill hit something solid. The sound echoed through the excavation chamber, reverberating off the walls like the groan of a waking giant. The machinery halted, and a silence fell over the team. "What is that?" I asked, stepping forward. Patel tapped the scanner, adjusting the settings to focus on the area beneath the drill. The holographic display showed a smooth, flat surface, its contours too precise to be natural. "It's a wall," Patel said. "A metallic wall. The structure's real." We spent the next 2 hours clearing the debris, carefully uncovering the alien structure buried beneath the Martian soil. When the wall finally came into full view, the breath caught in my throat. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Sleek, smooth and impossibly seamless, as if it had been forged in a single piece. Strange symbols adorned its surface, faintly glowing with a soft, pulsing light. The symbols were angular and intricate, forming patterns that seemed deliberate, purposeful. "What the hell is this?" Hargrove muttered, his voice edged with unease. Dr. Vega approached the wall, his eyes wide with fascination. "This is remarkable," he said, running a gloved hand over the glowing symbols. "This isn't just a structure, it's technology, advanced technology." "It's alien," I said, the words feeling surreal as they left my mouth. "This is it. The proof we've been searching for." Vega nodded, his fingers tracing the symbols. "Look at these patterns. They're too precise to be random. This is a language, or maybe a code." "You're assuming it's meant to be understood," Hargrove said, his tone sharp. "For all we know, it's a warning." "Warnings don't glow like this," Vega replied, his voice dripping with excitement. "This is a communication system, and I think I can activate it." "Hold on," I said, stepping between Vega and the wall. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet. We need to document everything before we start messing with it." Vega sighed, clearly annoyed. "Fine, but this is the discovery of a lifetime, Cole. Let's not waste it." The excavation team continued to clear the surrounding area, uncovering more of the structure. It wasn't just a wall, it was part of something much larger. The patterns extended in every direction, curving and intertwining in ways that suggested a massive, interconnected network. Patel's scanner picked up additional anomalies further down, deeper into the soil. "There's more below," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "This structure goes deeper than we thought. It could span the entire canyon." Hargrove's expression darkened. "And if it does, what then? You don't bury something this big unless you have a damn good reason." "Or unless it was never meant to be buried," Vega countered, his eyes gleaming. "This isn't a tomb, Hargrove, it's a vault. And whatever's inside, it's still active." His words shook me to the core of my being, but I pushed the unease aside. This was why we'd come, to uncover the truth, no matter how unsettling it might be. We worked late into the night, uncovering more of the structure. The wall led to a sealed entrance, a massive circular door with no visible seams or hinges. The symbols on its surface glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the vibrations beneath the ground. "This is it," Vega said, stepping closer to the door. "This is the way in." "And you think you can open it?" I asked, my voice steady despite the growing tension in my chest. Vega nodded. "The symbols are a control mechanism. I've been studying the patterns. If I can replicate the sequence, I can unlock it." "Or you could trigger whatever's keeping it sealed," Hargrove said, his tone icy. "This door wasn't built to keep us out. It was built to keep something in." "Which is exactly why we need to open it," Vega replied, his eyes narrowing. "This is their legacy, Lieutenant, their technology. If we can understand it, we can learn from it." "Or we can die for it," Hargrove shot back. I raised a hand, cutting off the argument before it could escalate. "Enough. Vega, proceed, but carefully. If there's any sign of danger, we stop immediately." Vega nodded, turning back to the door. He pressed his hand against the glowing symbols, his fingers moving in a deliberate pattern. The light intensified, the pulses growing faster, stronger. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and for a moment, I thought we'd made a terrible mistake. Then the door began to shift. It moved with a low, resonant hum, its edges retracting into the wall with impossible smoothness. Beyond it lay darkness, vast and silent, broken only by the faint glow of more alien symbols lining the walls. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. The air inside was cold, heavy, untouched by time. It felt like stepping into the belly of a sleeping giant. "This is it," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "We're the first ones to see this in millions of years." Hargrove's hand hovered near his weapon as he scanned the dark corridor ahead. Let's hope we're not the last. Back at the outpost, Patel was the first to notice the signals. It started as a faint vibration in the seismic readings, a subtle rhythm that seemed too regular to be natural. "There's something coming from the core," he said, his brow furrowed as he studied the data. A pattern almost like a pulse. Hargrove frowned, standing behind him with arms crossed. "Could it be tectonic activity?" Patel shook his head. Mars doesn't have an active core, at least not like Earth. This is something else. Vega, ever the opportunist, leaned over Patel's console with a gleam in his eye. If it's a signal, it could be connected to the ruins. A power source, maybe, or a message. Hargrove didn't look convinced. Or a warning. I tried to stay neutral, to focus on the science, but even I couldn't ignore the strange sense of foreboding that hung over the room. The pulse was faint but steady, an alien heartbeat resonating from the planet's core. "We need more data," I said, breaking the silence. "Patel, keep monitoring the signals. Vega, see if you can cross-reference them with the inscriptions we found. Let's figure out what we're dealing with." But as the team got to work, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were waking something that was better left asleep. The crystalline structure lay buried deep beneath the ruins, hidden within a collapsed chamber. It was massive, easily the size of a skyscraper, and it pulsed faintly with a soft, otherworldly light. "It's beautiful," Vega said, his voice reverent as he ran his scanner over the surface. "The energy readings are off the charts. This thing is still active." Hargrove scowled, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Active? After millions of years? That's not possible." "Nothing about this place is possible," Vega shot back, his excitement bordering on manic. "This could be the key to everything, their technology, their culture, their downfall." I stepped closer, the faint hum of the structure vibrating through my boots. It felt alive, not in the way a machine hums with electricity, but in a way that resonated on a deeper, almost biological level. "We need to be careful," I said, my voice firm. "This isn't just an artifact. It's part of something much larger." Vega ignored me, his attention fixed on the console embedded in the crystal. "There's an interface here, a command sequence. I think I can activate it." "No," Hargrove said sharply, stepping between Vega and the console. "Not without understanding what it does." Vega bristled, his eyes narrowing. "If we wait, we risk losing this opportunity. This is the find of the century. Do you really want to let it slip away?" "I want to keep us alive," Hargrove shot back. The tension in the room was palpable, but I stepped between them, raising a hand to calm them. "We'll take it slow. Vega, document everything, but don't touch anything yet. Patel, keep monitoring the core. If anything changes, I want to know immediately." They nodded, reluctantly stepping back. But as I turned away, I caught the look in Vega's eyes, determined, defiant. I knew he wouldn't wait. The pulse grew louder that night. I could feel it in my chest as I tried to sleep, a steady thrum that echoed through the outpost like a drumbeat. It wasn't just sound, it was a vibration, a force that seemed to seep into my bones. I wasn't the only one who felt it. Hargrove stood in the corridor outside my room, his face pale, his jaw clenched. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice low. "That pulse, it's not natural." I nodded, my throat dry. "It's getting stronger. Whatever's in the core, it's reacting to us." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "Or to Vega." I didn't want to believe it, but I knew he was right. Vega's obsession with the power node was consuming him, and the rest of us were getting dragged down with him. "I'll talk to him," I said, though I wasn't sure what good it would do. But as I turned to head to Vega's lab, the ground beneath us shuddered. It was faint, barely noticeable, but it was enough to stop me in my tracks. "Was that—" Hargrove began, but I cut him off. "Patel!" We ran to the control room, where Patel was hunched over his console, his face illuminated by the flickering data streams. "The signals," he said, his voice trembling. "They're not just signals. They're building to something. A release, maybe, or an activation." My stomach turned as the truth began to dawn on me. The Martians hadn't just abandoned their planet. They'd fled. Whatever was in the core, it wasn't just a power source, it was a time bomb. It began with dreams, fractured, haunting images that filled the edges of my consciousness. At first, I dismissed them as stress or exhaustion, but they became more vivid with every passing hour, impossible to ignore. I stood in a city, alien but beautiful, its towers gleaming under twin suns that cast long shadows across the red plains. The streets were alive with Martian beings, tall, graceful figures with shimmering, translucent skin that seemed to ripple like water. They moved with purpose, their faces unreadable but somehow serene. I could feel their minds, vast, intricate networks of thought, humming in unison. Then the scene shifted. The sky darkened, one of the suns dimming unnaturally, as if swallowed by some unseen force. The Martians' serenity turned to panic, their movements frantic. Great ships rose from the ground, their engines glowing with power, but the figures hesitated as if they couldn't all escape. Then a blinding light erupted from the horizon and the vision dissolved into chaos. I woke with a start, gasping for air. My heart pounded in rhythm with the pulse from the core. But it wasn't just me. As I stumbled into the common area of the habitat, I found Patel and Hargrove already there, their faces pale. "You saw it too," I said, and it wasn't a question. Patel nodded, his hands trembling. It wasn't just a dream, it was a memory. From them. Hargrove's jaw tightened. A memory or a warning. Vega appeared moments later, his face calm, but his eyes burning with intensity. "It's neither. It's a connection. The structure is sharing its history with us. It's communicating." "Communicating what?" Hargrove snapped. "That they blew themselves to hell?" "Maybe," Vega replied, his tone sharp. "But maybe it's something more. Something we can use. Or something that can use us," Patel muttered, almost to himself. The unease in the room was palpable, the air thick with tension. We were unraveling, each of us gripped by the same haunting visions, the same terrible realization. Whatever had happened to the Martians, it wasn't over. And we were standing at the center of it. The strain of the mission was taking its toll. The pulse from the core had grown louder, more insistent, and the dreams had become inescapable. Patel's face was lined with exhaustion, his hands trembling as he worked. Hargrove's temper was fraying, his distrust of Vega bubbling dangerously close to the surface. And Vega had become consumed by the power node. "You're going too far," Hargrove said, his voice sharp as a knife as he confronted Vega in the control room. "This isn't about discovery anymore, it's about your damn ego." Vega didn't look up from his console, his fingers dancing over the controls. "It's about progress," he replied coldly. "You're just too small-minded to see it." "Small-minded?" Hargrove snapped, stepping closer. "You're putting all of us at risk because you can't control yourself." "Enough," I said, stepping between them. The tension in the room was suffocating, the pulse from the core vibrating through the walls like a living thing. "This isn't helping, we need to stay focused." Hargrove glared at Vega but stepped back, his hand lingering near his weapon. Vega smirked but said nothing, his attention already back on the power node. As they returned to their work, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. The team was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. All I could do was press on, hoping that we could uncover the truth before it was too late. Patel burst into the control room, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "We need to stop," he said, his voice trembling. "The signals, they're not a message. They're a warning. The core, it's unstable. If we keep pushing, we could trigger something catastrophic." Vega rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting. The core is a power source. It's designed to handle this kind of stress." "You don't know that," Patel shouted, slamming his hand on the console. "None of us do. The Martians abandoned this planet for a reason. They left because of this." I stepped between them, my head spinning from Patel's words. "What do you mean?" Patel pointed to his data streams, the readings flashing red. "The core isn't just a power source, it's a containment system. Something inside it. It's alive. And if we keep poking at it, we're going to let it out." The room fell silent as his words sank in. The pulse from the core seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as if it were responding to Patel's warning. "We need to shut it down," Hargrove said, his voice firm. "Whatever this thing is, it's not worth the risk." Vega shook his head. "Shut it down? Do you have any idea what we'd be giving up? This is the find of the century. We can't just walk away." "We don't have a choice," I said, my voice heavy with resignation. "If Patel's right..." Patel is wrong, Vega interrupted, his eyes burning with intensity. This isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. But as he spoke, the ground beneath us shuddered, and a deep, guttural roar echoed from the core. The pulse had become a heartbeat, alive and furious, and I knew in that moment that Patel was right. We had to stop it before it stopped us. By the time we found Vega, the power node was glowing with a blinding intensity, its crystalline surface pulsating like a living heart. The hum that had haunted us from the moment we arrived had transformed into a deafening roar, each pulse shaking the ground beneath our feet. "Vega, step away!" I shouted, my voice barely audible over the vibrations rattling through the ruins. He didn't turn. He stood there, transfixed, his hands flying across the alien console embedded in the node. Symbols we couldn't read glowed and shifted beneath his fingers, responding to his touch as if they had been waiting for him all along. "This is it!" Vega cried, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and madness. "This is their legacy, Cole. Can't you see? They didn't abandon it. They left it for us." Hargrove raised his weapon, his knuckles white. "Step away, Vega. I won't ask again." But Vega ignored him, his attention locked on the console. The node pulsed brighter, casting harsh shadows across the cavern. My heart raced as the vibrations grew stronger, cracks splintering through the walls and floor around us. "Vega, listen to me," I pleaded, taking a cautious step forward. "You don't know what you're doing. This isn't a gift. It's a containment system. If you keep pushing, you'll destroy everything." "Destroy?" Vega turned to me, his eyes wild, his face illuminated by the sickly glow of the node. "No, Cole, this is creation. This is power. They understood what we can't even begin to comprehend." Hargrove moved forward, his weapon aimed squarely at Vega's chest. "Last warning." Before I could stop him, Vega slammed his palm onto the console and the world exploded into chaos. A wave of energy erupted from the node, throwing us all to the ground. The roar was deafening, a cacophony of sound and light that drowned out every thought. I hit the floor hard, the air knocked from my lungs, my vision swimming. Dust and debris filled the air as the walls of the cavern groaned and cracked, massive chunks of stone raining down around us. I scrambled to my feet, coughing, my ears ringing. Hargrove was already up, his weapon drawn, his eyes locked on Vega. The scientist stood before the node, his arms outstretched as the energy surged around him, his face twisted in ecstasy. "This is it!" Vega shouted, his voice distorted by the roar of the node. "This is the future!" "Vega, get down!" Hargrove barked, but it was too late. The node pulsed again, brighter and faster, and the energy engulfed Vega. His scream was drowned out by the roar as his body was consumed by the light, disintegrating before our eyes. The light surged outward, and the floor beneath the node cracked open, revealing a chasm that glowed with the same eerie, pulsating energy. "Move!" Hargrove shouted, grabbing my arm and pulling me back as the ground gave way beneath our feet. We stumbled and fell, scrambling to stay ahead of the collapsing floor. Patel was behind us, his face pale, his eyes wide with terror as he dodged falling debris. The entire cavern was coming apart, the energy from the core tearing through the ruins with unstoppable force. "We need to get out of here," Patel screamed, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Not without shutting this thing down," I shouted back, though I wasn't sure how we could possibly stop it now. The remaining floor trembled beneath us as we stumbled into the chamber where the node's primary console was housed. The alien technology glowed with a sinister light, the symbols on its surface shifting and pulsing in time with the roar of the core. Patel rushed to the console, his hands trembling as he scanned the interface. "It's still active," he said, his voice shaking. "If we can override it, we might be able to contain the energy." "Do it," I said, my heart pounding. "We don't have much time." Hargrove stood guard at the entrance, his weapon drawn, his eyes scanning the collapsing ruins. "Hurry up, Patel. This place isn't going to hold much longer." Patel's fingers flew across the console, but the symbols seemed to resist him, shifting and rearranging faster than he could keep up. It's fighting me," he muttered, sweat dripping down his face. "It's like it doesn't want to be shut down." "Then force it!" Hargrove shouted, his voice edged with panic. I moved to Patel's side, my hands shaking as I tried to make sense of the alien interface. The symbols were incomprehensible, but the patterns felt familiar, like the fragments of the visions we'd seen. My mind raced, piecing together what little I could remember. Try this sequence, I said, pointing to a cluster of symbols. It matches the ones we saw in the ruins, the evacuation glyphs. Patel nodded, his hands moving with renewed urgency. The console flashed and the node's glow flickered, the pulse faltering for a moment before returning stronger than ever. "It's not working!" Patel cried, his voice rising in panic. "The core's energy is too unstable. It's going to blow." "No, it's not," Hargrove said, his voice grim. "It's not going to blow, it's going to spread." "What?" I turned to him, dread pooling in my stomach. Hargrove's jaw tightened. "This isn't just about Mars. That energy, it's reaching out, transmitting. Whatever's in the core, it's not stopping here. It's heading for Earth." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The signals, the pulses, the dreams, they weren't just warnings. They were a contagion, a way to spread whatever destruction had consumed Mars to our home. "We have to stop it," I said, my voice shaking. "We can't let this thing reach Earth." Patel hesitated, his hands hovering over the console. "If we destroy the node, we'll lose everything. The data, the knowledge, all of it." "We'll lose more if we don't," Hargrove said, stepping forward. "Make the call, Cole. Do we shut it down, or do we run?" I looked at the console, the symbols shifting and pulsing like a living thing, and I knew there was only one choice. "Do it," I said, my voice heavy with resignation. "Shut it down." The console blared a warning tone as Patel entered the final sequence, the symbols flashing red as the node's energy surged in resistance. The chamber shook violently, cracks spiderwebbing across the walls and ceiling as the core roared beneath us. "Hold on!" Hargrove shouted, bracing himself against a nearby pillar as debris rained down around us. Patel's fingers flew across the controls, his face a mask of determination. "Almost there! Almost!" A deafening boom shook the chamber and a massive chunk of the ceiling collapsed, smashing into the floor just meters from where we stood. I shielded my face from the dust and debris, my ears ringing from the impact. "Patel, hurry!" I yelled, my voice hoarse. "Got it!" Patel shouted, slamming his hand onto the console. The node flickered, its light dimming as the pulse faltered. For a moment, the roar subsided, replaced by an eerie silence that felt almost unnatural. But then the console blared again and a new signal appeared. Stronger, faster, more insistent. The symbols on the console shifted, forming a new pattern, one I recognized immediately. "It's transmitting," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It's sending the signal to Earth." Patel's face went pale. We didn't stop it. We triggered it." The chamber trembled again, the roar of the core returning with a vengeance. The node surged one final time, and the light from the console went dark. As we stumbled out of the ruins, the Martian horizon lit up with a blinding flash, the pulse from the core echoing through the planet's surface. And in the distance, I could see the faint shimmer of the transmission leaving Mars, heading into the void, toward Earth. Back on Earth, the signals began. Strange frequencies, faint vibrations, the hum of something vast and ancient awakening. The catastrophe that had consumed Mars was coming, and this time there would be no escape.